Going on the road with Stan Beardy means getting in an airplane. As Grand Chief of the Nishnawbe Aski Nation, a territory that covers nearly 2/3 of Ontario, he's got a lot of ground to cover and people to visit. Today he's traveling to several schools with the Office of the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario to check up on some donated laptops. Along for the ride is 8-year-old Braden, a little boy that has become a regular travel companion for the chief. Though not related by blood or adoption, they are very much father and son. These are the kind of trips the Grand Chief used to take his son Daniel on when he was Braden's age.
He attended meetings, banquets with me in front of chiefs and dignitaries, but also he really enjoyed being just two of us in a bush and a land, learning about our traditional lifestyle.
There's a lot of land to be found in Muskrat Dam, a fly-in community surrounded by water and forest. Although connected to his tight-knit community, Daniel and his family would have to leave it to pursue his passion, hockey.
At a very young age, when he was about 5 years old, when we were living here in Muskrat Dam, we didn't have an outdoor rink, we don't have an arena, it's a very small village. He told us he wanted to play hockey, and that was one of the main reasons why we moved to the town of Sulikout. When the names were called up for the hockey team to see who can skate, he was the only one that had to crawl out on hands and knees to be on the hockey team. and it didn't take him long when he realized that to be a hockey player, you need to know how to skate.
Although he didn't have an illustrious start, Daniel spent the next years living and breathing hockey. As their only child, Nellie and Stan had many dreams for their son. His was to make it to the big leagues. At 16, he was already goaltending for a Junior A hockey team in Thunder Bay. Though tough on the ice, his parents said he was an affectionate, tender boy.
You know, he was just a loving, caring son. He told us every day that he loved us.
He was a people person, and he had many friends. He had native friends, non-native friends, and he got along with everybody that I know of, that he was able to make quick friends, and he was very respectful.
And so it would be a shock when in August 2004, Grand Chief Beardy received a call. His son had been severely beaten at a party and was in hospital.
Well, I went to the emergency. Nellie was here in Muskrat Dam. I went to see him, and doctors talked to me that he was in a very serious condition. They were doing tests on him, see how bad it was. So after the initial discussion with the doctors, I called Nellie. I said, Daniel's not breathing on his own. He's been hurt really bad.
Nellie had no idea how serious the incident was or how it would forever alter their lives.
At first, you don't really grasp like the depth of his message. But I knew that he had been hurt, and he was hurt pretty bad, but I didn't take it at that point for him to be gravely injured.
They soon found out their son was brain dead. After consulting several doctors, they realized there was no hope of recovery.
We had only one child. We had a son. And that boy, our son, we had a perfect relationship with him. He was very respectful, he was a caring person. He had a promise, a great promise in his life. When a doctor tells you that your son is dead, the world that you know is shattered. Everything that, up to that time, of your belief system, who you are, is shattered.
Every Sunday.
Faith had always been part of the Beardy's life and Daniel's upbringing. They both say they prayed for their son to live, but knew they had to let him go. It was in this darkest hour that a little 2-year-old boy came bounding into the emergency ward.
So he comes running in there. He says, right on the floor, he looks around, I said, what's going on? I said, just through tears, wiped my eyes, and I said, little boy, we just lost our son. Daniel just died. So the little guy, little tiny hand stretched out his hand and he says, I'm your son now. And goes over to Nellie and hugs her and said, I'm your son.
The little boy was Braden, and apart from the Beardies, he was Daniel's biggest fan.
So when this little boy came in here, at that time, I just didn't know whether I would be able to go on. I didn't connect the significance of him being there then. It was until a little later that I realized that that's my lifeline, that little guy.
You like this one?
It's a lifeline both Stan and Nellie hold on to today. They have become parents to Braden, teaching him many of the things they taught their son.
Although he doesn't live with us daily, you know, he phones, we keep on top of his schedule, and he just likes hanging around with us too and hanging around our house in Thunder Bay. And he loves being in Muskrat Dam as well. He's said that lots of times. He loves Muskrat Dam. It's just a very natural relationship. And like I say, we take him to church. We have to take him to church. We have to teach him about our culture. We have to teach him about his creator. You know, we basically do the same things that we did with our own son.
If I were a butterfly, I would thank you, Lord, for giving me wings.
That means teaching about where he comes from and giving him the opportunities their own son had.
So I think we look at him as a gift. We realize that's a gift from the Creator. And what happens is that if it's a precious gift, you look after that gift and you nurture it to begin to realize the potential of that gift. And that's what we're doing at Braden.
Faith is a thread that runs through the community of Muskrat Dam, and the annual Gospel Jamboree is one of its biggest celebrations.
You know, I won't take too much of your time, but
tonight, they are also celebrating Daniel Beardy's life with the release of a CD and a special performance by Aboriginal singer Yvonne St. Germain. All the songs on the CD are about heaven. The Beardies hope it's a place they'll see their son again. They say they went to the expense of doing the CD to keep the memory of their son alive and hope it encourages others to look to God whenever trials may come.
We believe, Stan and I both believe, that God was working in our own lives long before we met this tragedy.
You know, when we tell this story, people that exist just for existence sake will say, what a beautiful story. Others will say, you're so lucky. The believers say, God is amazing. And I say the same thing. I think God still looks after us, regardless what difficulties, challenges that we go through life.
But I just thank you, Lord.
In Muskrat Dam, Denise, Lodde, 100 Huntley Street.
Okay.